We talk a lot about mental health on Unspoken Minds, but what is really happening to the brain? For example, when a teenager scrolls through social media for hours, or when they're paralyzed trying to choose a major, or when they're maybe experimenting with drugs and alcohol, what's going on neurologically that makes these decisions so hard and these substances so dangerous? Today, we are sitting down with Dr. Mazhar Khowaja, a board-certified psychiatrist who graduated from Aga Khan College in Pakistan and has been practicing for over 35 years, treating everything from anxiety and depression to ADHD across Texas, Michigan, and Illinois. Today, we are discussing the real answers about developing the brain, the chemistry behind our choices, and why understanding the science matters just as much as understanding the stigma. Welcome to Unspoken Minds, a podcast dedicated to breaking the silence around mental health in South Asian communities. I am Arnav Saigal, founder of Uplifting Minds. In each episode, we bring together mental health professionals, doctors, students, educators, parents, and more to explore how cultural expectations, stigma, and academic pressure shape our well-being. Through honest conversations and lived experiences, our goal is to create understanding, encourage dialogue, and make mental health support more accessible and culturally informed. Hi, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me and taking some time out to speak with me. Do you want to start off by introducing yourself and telling the audience what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm a practicing psychiatrist here in the Houston, Texas area. I um, have been practicing psychiatry for over 25 years, much before you were born. Uh, I lived in Michigan, uh, and before that, I was trained in Chicago at Chicago Medical School.
The first thing I wanted to ask you, I think this is a pretty important question to address to the audience, is what is so special about the brain that is not so special maybe about other organs?
Oh, that's $1 million question. Okay. So, um, the body has many organ systems. You have cardiovascular system, you have the kidneys that form the urine, you have the spleen, the respiratory system. They all are essential for a healthy body to work. But there is truly something very special about brain. Um, and recognizing that from evolutionary point of view will give you an idea how important it is then to take care of your brain. So consider your body has multiple computer systems, and then there is a mega or a motherboard computer that governs everything else. So your brain is like that. It has centers that regulate your blood pressure, your temperature, your breathing, all the things that are essential to survive. On top of it, the brain then, over the course of millions of years of evolution, has developed a system of emotions where it recognizes emotions, creates certain feelings in you, and then those feelings drive you to behave one way or the other. And on top of that, the third layer of the brain is where your executive functioning, your decision making happens. So consider your brain has actually three brains in there: the reptilian brain, the one that just sustains life; the limbic brain, where you have all the world of emotions, and there are specific nuclei that do different things. And then on top of it, what we call cerebral cortex, the frontal lobe, the prefrontal lobe is part of that. So it's a mega computer that is governing your life, but also the way you interact with the world. But there is a very important message that you young people want to understand. Why is what is the sign that nature is giving you that brain is important? You see, there are many organs that are in the body. Think about the kidney and the spleen and the muscles, but there is one organ that nature has actually preserved in a helmet because it
Yeah.
is so important. It does not want it to get hurt, and that's your skull. In other words, nature is actually preserving your brain. It is that important. The reason I'm mentioning it is that this is the one organ that people generally neglect. If you had a cut on your arm and you see blood coming, you rush to get something done. But when your brain is internally having similar injuries, think about injury by doing drugs. Nobody views it as drastic as you would if there was blood coming out of your arm. And so to
Yeah.
set up that mindset, especially earlier in the age, because your brain is still growing, the impact of that can be significant in everything that you otherwise will feel and do.
So obviously the brain is so important, right? I mean,
Right.
you've made that point very clear. But
Okay.
what are some ways that we can take care of the brain before it becomes diseased or before we start to show symptoms like any other organ or any other machine?
So I like your question because we are in this society so focused on treat the diseased brain. You're feeling depressed, go to a doctor, get a medicine, go in therapy. But that is a disease state. A lot happens before the disease. And so if you understand what you can do from lifestyle changes, then you may delay or never have the disease symptoms come up to the point where you need treatment. Okay,
Yeah.
so what can you do to do a healthy growth of the brain and maintenance? Okay, so first rule is do no harm to the brain. Okay, you can do harm to the brain in broadly speaking two ways: physical and chemical. So physical would be, for example, even in the childhood, if you rode bicycle and you didn't wear a helmet and there were injuries, physical injuries, later on we find out that they actually have an impact. So if you are in a contact sports or you do other things that can hit your brain, that's an example of physical injury. Avoid that. But then there are chemical injuries. So chemical injuries, think about alcohol and drugs. They affect your brain. That's why you feel the way you feel when you drink or do any drugs. Those are not good for your brain. They are changing, they're altering the chemistry of the brain to the point where you actually lose your decision making. You may laugh more, you may have more fun, but from a medical point of view, from a impact on the brain point of view, that is injury. Surrounded by toxic people who are constantly giving you stress is a chemical injury to the brain. All of us have friends or people that we mingle with who, when you are done talking or mingling with, you come out with more questions about yourself, your self-esteem, and they drain you. That's a toxic injury. Another thing that is very relevant to your population is um, not really giving sleep as much importance as you should do. I know teenagers are chronically sleep deprived, but okay, think about sleep. Okay, let's go back to nature. You have 24 hours in a day, and nature dictates that out of those, roughly speaking, 8 hours, you sleep. That is one third of your life.
Yeah.
Think about it. There has to be a reason why nature has dictated that we sleep for 8 hours, which is a lot of time. You see this phone?
Yeah.
If it needs 6 hours of charging, and if you chronically charge it for 3 hours, it will never be optimally charged. And so is the case with brain. And that's a very common problem with teenagers that they do not have enough importance for the one mechanism that actually cleans the brain, lets it grow, because nature wants it to. If one thing that I want to get across to your audience today is give your brain what nature has asked it to get. The third thing that I can say about healthy brain growth is brain grows with experiences. Okay? Our species, Homo sapiens, grow with experiences. Your brain's volume is at about 90% early on in very early age when you are still a very small child, like 5, 6 years. Later on, it is all learning and making neuronal connections from experiences. The experiences can be good and bad, though both are important. All these experiences cannot be just learned from reading a book or scrolling on the phone. So the phone has become a experience blocker. Now I
Yeah.
know social media is important and they give you good things and you learn quite a bit about many different things in the world that you would otherwise not. Some of your homework is, but I'm also asking that people should spend more time in person, where you meet with other people, friends, etc. Why am I saying that? Because that is also part of the healthy brain growth.
Yeah, the social connection.
The social connections that has to happen in person because your chemistry of the brain changes when you shake hands, make eye contacts, read the body language of the other person. And those are important to navigate life.
I have a couple questions, but I'll start
Go
off with
ahead.
my first one. Um, what does alcohol do differently to the teenage brain than an adult?
So what alcohol does? Alcohol is a suppressant. Just understand this. And it takes away a lot of cognition, which means your at the time when you are intoxicated or have alcohol in your brain, it shuts down certain systems and you become like somebody, a vehicle without the brakes. Okay. Now, what does it do to a teenage brain as opposed to a grown-up brain? Your teenage brain is very eager and capable of learning from environment because that is what it is doing. It is growing. So when you shut down those systems temporarily, you are shutting down all the experiences that you will learn. I'll give you a very common example. Most people who are drunk feel they are not drunk and they can still drive.
Hmm.
Somehow their judgment of how drunk that person is gone. And they will say, "Oh, I can drive. I'm okay." And next thing you know, you have a DUI, a DWI. This is just a good example of how alcohol impaired the judgment. If that person saw his own video next day before hopping into the driver's seat, it will be very obvious that I shouldn't have drunk. I was drunk. Okay. So then what happens? So then there is a social consequences also to the brain that was probably not a social consequence of this type of behavior that was probably not available some years ago. So we live in an era of internet, computer.
Yeah.
Think about it this era, and if you had a drunk driving 50 years ago in Michigan, most of the records were paper records. If you went to Alaska, probably nobody would know, and that is a paper record. You guys live in a computer era. Whatever happens, it stays permanently. So if you get some kind of legal trouble and later on, 30 years later, you want to run for office, it is going to bite you because it is permanent. Now, I'm not saying don't drink at all, which obviously will be ideal, but it is not mostly doable. But I'm trying to tell you, your audience is to keep those things in mind and start to think about some kind of moderation where you're not hurting your brain chemically too much.
Yeah, I mean, moderation and balance for anything is
But
super
alcohol
important.
also causes insomnia, by the way.
Oh,
So
really?
people think when you drink, you sleep. It is true. You will fall asleep or pass out, but the body changes it, and after a couple of hours, you will wake up. And when you wake up, you are awake. So it's not something that causes sustained sleep. It may make you fall asleep, but then a few hours later, you're up. So we call it insomnia.
I mean, social media is the same, especially in today's world where people from um like people from your generation, you guys never grew up with technology and social media, right? But we are growing up, we grew up with it our entire lives. So, what is social media doing to the teenage brain that's so
Oh God,
detrimental?
yes. Um, so there is a so divide social media in two separate things. One is its benefits. It gives you information on your fingertips,
Hmm.
useful information, but there's also information overload. Inaccurate information is a big problem, especially now with AI. You can create anything and make it so believable.
Yeah.
But if you look at just from the what it can do for you, there is a lot of information that is good that was not readily available when I grew up. So we had to go physically to the library and spend time, which had its own benefits and all. So the good part is there. The problem is that phone and screens are addicting. They are designed to be addicting because every time you get a thumbs up or a like, scroll, it instantly, within a fraction of a second, releases dopamine. Dopamine is a feel good, addicting hormone, and you get that. And if you're doing it all day long, it actually depletes the dopamine reservoir in the brain. What does it mean? Your body can only produce so much. And if you're
Right.
depleting it, then you don't have any. And so when you don't scroll the phone, you immediately feel so much um, deprived of fun. Like 5 years to 25 years is when your brain is really capturing a lot of experiences as a learning platform. You get take that away, so people are not interacting with other humans. People are not playing in the playgrounds. They are not doing sports where they can get a minor injury, and they are then given a package, a device package that's trying to speed up those experiences that nature cannot cope up with. So then you feel so much lost and so much lonely, and those are very anxiety provoking stimuli. By the way, you will hear people saying it's no big deal. The same happened when the radio came, the TV came, the automobile came. Those were all true. People were scared and then adopted. But the speed of change that internet has is never seen before. So the
Yeah.
pace the brain cannot keep up with.
It's evolving so rapidly, and I mean, I will admit, like I'm probably addicted to my phone, to addicted to social media. I'm trying to go this entire month without Instagram, and it's not easy, but I will say that I've noticed an impact on like my sleep and like productiveness. Because the thing
Yes,
is when you're using your phone right before you sleep, the blue light from your screen, it makes you think that it's daytime, and so your brain goes to this active alert phase when it should be calm and trying to relax, right? And so as a result, I think I've been getting much better sleep, and then also obviously productivity because I'm not wasting my time on my phone. So,
great. I mean, that's wonderful. I think that what you're doing is very good attempt, and I appreciate it.
but what I wanted to ask you is what like you've been practicing for you mentioned 30 years, right? So in all that time, do you see a or how big is the difference you think between the patients you served back then and the teens you serve now?
In your age group.
Yeah.
So the biggest difference to me is resilience. 25, 30 years ago, young people had a lot more resilience to the ups and downs of life.
Hmm.
If there was a bad friend, if there was a bad sporting event, if there was a bad thing at home, they found a way to handle it without much symptomatology, without much of uh, symptoms of depression, anxiety, and they had the capacity to, like any other animal, to learn from it and sail through. Now, it's almost a fragile nation because everything is a toxic relationship, even if it is just a little bit of variation. Everything is drama.
Yeah.
So the threshold for calling something trauma is so low. So that is one. The second is entitlement. So back then you had to earn your perks. You had to work very hard to win a sprint, a sporting event. Now, if you don't get a trophy for just showing up, it's drama.
Yeah.
Okay, so entitlement keeps you from driving for excellence. The third is parenting. The parents were comfortable to let their children do unsupervised play. And a little bit of scratch here and there would be okay. Now the parenting is almost you are in a hand sanitizer mode all the time. So no exposure to anything that could potentially temporarily cause pain or scratch or playing with dirt. We have sterilized people from experiences. But then when they go in real life, life is cruel. Life will have ups and downs, and they're not prepared.
Yeah.
Um, the rush to get treatment for things like ADD or ADHD, childhood anxiety, separation anxiety, the rush to fix it with a pill is far different now than it used to be some years ago. The threshold has lowered. Parents don't have time to do all the other things that needs to be done
So they're just
to,
getting the
to, to help
medication.
those symptoms. They rush to get a pill, a
Yeah.
diagnosis and pill, and then you know what it does? It just justifies. My child is suffering from A, B, C, D, and all the behavior is justified. So I'm going to connect dots here. If you don't sleep enough, you will have attention problem the next day. Try it. Don't sleep for, stay sleep deprived for 3, 4, 5 nights and see what happens to your attention and irritability and eating junk. You will eat more junk because the brain just cannot have the capacity to make good decisions. I'm trying to bring you guys back to how humans should be. There is a reason that the night is 8 hours.
Yeah. That I mean, it's so important.
Yeah.
Um, a problem that every high schooler faces is their career path, right? What they want to
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
after high school and into college. So from your neuroscience kind of perspective, um, what is like really happening to the brain when big life changes are happening, like
Yeah,
you're
yeah. That's a
moving or
that's a
something
very
like that?
that's a very loaded question. How do you know which pathway to go into and spend the rest of your life studying it and practicing it? The common answer that is very, very commonly given is follow your passion. I think that is wrong. How about follow your talent?
What's the difference?
Talent is something, it's a great question. How do you know what's your talent? If you look at your life or not, there are certain things that you can do easily. It could be math, it could be leadership, it could be solving problems that you do with minimum resistance. Passion is advertised. Passion is created mostly by your environment. So if you live in a society, you're surrounded by doctors, and they all day long they're talking about how they are doing good work and helping people, and you as a child hearing it, you're likely to develop passion for the field of medicine. If you are talented for A and you go for B because that is your passion, the amount of work you will have to do, the resistance there is, will be enormous. And that is where most of your energy will go in.
But like, so for me, I'm college application season is starting up, right? And so I have to decide where I want to go and all that. So is there brain chemistry behind why that big decision can feel so overwhelming?
The brain will feel anxious. It is supposed to feel anxious. Some level of anxiety is necessary and productive because that is how Homo sapiens survived. If there was no anxiety, they would have been extinct by now. Some animal would have eaten our ancestors, and that's it.
So it's a survival instinct.
It's a survival thing. Okay. So understand that some of it is normal. The fear of unknown is also quite normal. The brain chemistry that works there, there's a part called amygdala in the brain.
Mhm.
Amygdala is a very small collection of neurons that governs the anxiety response, the fear response. So in some people, it is normal. Some people, it is subnormal. They don't feel anxious, even in situations where they should be. And in some, it is overactive, where they feel more anxious than they should be. So that's the brain chemistry behind it. The amygdala talks to your frontal brain. The frontal brain is where logic will kick in. So all the things that you put in your decision that are based on logic, the cost, the time, where you will live, what is the value of it in real world, what would you do after the degree, all those things are logical things that come from frontal lobe. And then amygdala and frontal lobe kind of connect, and then you make a decision. That's the ideal brain. Some people have overactive amygdala, some people have overactive or underactive frontal lobe. And that's why they feel differently in the same situation. So that's the brain chemistry.
Well, I think we had a great conversation
Yeah,
and I really enjoyed our talk. I think I learned a lot for sure, and I hope our audience can also learn a lot and hopefully change their lifestyle a little bit to for the better.
very good.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope we
Okay,
can connect
thank you very
sometime in the
much.
future.
So, bye
All right, bye.
bye.
Thank you for listening to Unspoken Minds. For everyone trying to understand what's happening inside their own mind or worried about the choices they're making, knowledge is power, and you deserve real answers. If this episode resonated with you, we encourage you to continue this conversation with your family, peers, or mentors. Consider following Unspoken Minds for future episodes, and remember, you are not alone, and it is okay to speak what often goes unspoken.